Good morning, everyone, and today we are going to continue our tips from Pragmatic Developer and Robots, and we're going to continue on tips 36 that says minimize coupling between modules. Most times, you might have 3 or 4 modules that have to interact with each other. Make it flexible that each of those modules are independently. They can work. They can work asynchronous without they can work independently without each other. So don't tangle modules together. Because for example, some of us want to create one service and we divide that services between like 4 modules, and we are like calling one module, the whole function is not being laid out in one module, we are calling it in another module. That means we have to like communicate between those modules in order for that service to be integrated, and a bug or an issue in one module just collapse the whole service. So you shouldn't program like that. How tightly 2 modules depend on each other, the tighter the complaint, the harder it is to change one without breaking the other. So you might have to like change a particular functionality, the way you work on it. You don't have to now change the other functionality. So if you couple it tightly together, that might be the case. So when testing and having like wanting to do 1 or 2 things, you might have issues. So minimize coupling between modules. Configure. So the next service says configure, don't integrate. What does this mean? What does it mean to configure and not to integrate? I know some of us likes to like we like to put business configuration file into codes. That means when integrating, you get to see some people they don't have a source file that they actually source, because all the whole business logic or their whole third party API are in that code. So now imagine you want to change a service that you're using, or you want to change a third party, you have to rewrite, you have to go to the code base, and probably you might have to bring your system down for 1 or 2 minutes or even hours if you've gone live, and that's a poor way of developing. So try to use a source file where those services are in the source file. So if you change one service from the other, it doesn't affect the code. So try to put everything in a configuration file. That's something, that's the beauty of Elixir. Elixir has config for development, config for production, and config for test. So if you're just trying to test a service, you're not too sure, you can put a service in test mode. So whenever you go to test, that service is what is going to be tested with. So if you go to development, whatever you put in development will be working there. So if you go to production, so it helps you to decouple between services and between branches and between development branches. So that alone is a very, very interesting thing, and that helps you to realize that you can configure, you don't have to integrate. So let me take for instance, now you're working on a project on a payment gateway and you're using Flutterwave, and tomorrow you decide to like change your mind that, oh, I don't want to use Flutter again, I want to stick to Paystack, or I want to directly integrate with a banking API, so I want to go to Providence. But because you have integrate, you have not configured, you have to change the whole logic. So imagine if you want to use 4 or 5 different business providers, are you going to always change the logic for each of them? Instead, you could have a private payment gateway that calls any of the services you want to use, and you could put all those services in their own different modules, so that way the payment gateway is independent, just speak to those services, but they are not integrated together. So put abstraction in code, details in metadata. This is a very, very key analysis that we should take into consideration. Core logic should be abstract, general, specific, like what service, what rules, and what value should live inside in config, metadata, or the database. So you don't want to do user role is equals to just use an example. You don't want to do user role is equals to what what would I use for example? Okay, user.row is equals to maybe user.row is equals to super admin or something. And if you put this code like that, it lives in your code, and you want to change the permission for that super admin, you have to go and start changing it in the code base. But if you put abstraction in code and details in metadata, all you just have to change is probably change the metadata aspect of where those permissions are being linked. So you just call the permission, and the admin does not have to know which permission they have in their system, because you have like decouple it, you have put it somewhere else, and you're just configuring that admin with that permission. So you're putting abstraction in code and you're putting the details in metadata. That means your business logic is different from your code logic. So you see there's a synergy between both parties. Analyze to improve. Oh, sorry, I think something is up. This is so analyze to improve concurrency. Yeah, so sorry, I realized something is wrong somewhere. So I'm just going to start from here. Minimize coupling between modules. We have discussed on this. Put abstraction in code and details in metadata. We have talked on this. Analyze to improve concurrency. It's not everywhere in your code that concurrency is being needed or need to be integrated. But if you don't analyze, you might put concurrency, and this might slow your code or slow your work in progress, and this might just add complexity into your code. So before you add complexity into what you're doing, try to see, is it necessary? Is there a better way for me to like achieve this without adding complexity to what I'm doing? So don't just throw concurrency or parallel processes or asynchronous tasks at a problem. Don't just say, okay, I make this task, I'm going to use await.asynchronous to it. I'm just going to do fire and forget. Try to analyze the task. Try to know, okay, what's this task saying about? Break it down and discuss properly. Like ask your manager for question. Ask your team lead for more information about the process. Try to find out the process. Try to flow with the process. Try to know after this what comes next. So you'll be able to have a clearer picture of what is being expected of you, and that way you can improve what you're doing on. Tip 40 says, so this is the last tip for today. It says design using services. Each design should I call it each design template you have, or each design architecture. Don't design the backend system without knowing what the whole system is about, which kind of services is it integrating with. Most of us, we have this we walk blindly. So don't walk blindly when building. We just be like, okay, let me throw in, you just imagine you're cooking a pot of jollof rice, and you just say, let me throw it to the jollof rice and see how it comes out. You might just make a mess of your kitchen and make a mess of that food, and you might not be able to eat it. But if you sit down and say, oh, I want to cook a jollof rice, I need rice, I need this, you're trying to find out the various ingredients. Then the next thing you're going to go is step by step, which comes first, which comes second. So that's like when you're designing, think of the service, think of each part of the system as a service with boundaries, contract, API, not just a pile of function. So try to decompose, okay, why are we using these services, or which kind of how are we going to use the service? Is it a dynamic service? Is it something that is going to change? Is it something that we want to schedule? Like, try to process what's going on. I remember in my last task, I was given a task to like determine the response time of the system, and yeah, I had it to like help me work out the response time, and so my response time was spiking so high, and immediately I the way I code before initially is that I just go to the code base and start saying boom, the response time is high. Okay, this might be the code. No, I don't want to do it. Don't do a guesswork. Don't ever do a guesswork. It doesn't end well. So sit down and try to understand what's going on. So try to see if there's a bottleneck, try to find out where is the bottleneck coming from, what's the problem, bit by bit. Learn to take tasks bit by bit, learn to take things in life bit by bit. Don't rush into everything, because if you rush into everything you might get burned. So careful, like careful with your step, because if you take things step by step, it's easier for you to come back to say, oh, this is where I missed my step, this is what I should do. So if you're having a odd service, try to find out what is involved in an odd service. Okay, someone has to go through the login, they have to go to the sign up, they have to go through their forget password. Step by step, how does this service, how is it going to be integrated, how will the front end get to use the services, how will the user feel. So you have to think about everything while designing. You don't want to design blindly. Each service has a clear responsibility, can evolve independently, can later become separate apps if needed. So in summary, what we're trying to say is don't tangle modules, keep external details in config, make logic general, store rules outside. The fourth one says analyze, find real bottleneck before adding asynchronous. Try to find the problem before you go into diving into the solution. Think in modular, service-oriented boundaries. So thank you so much for sticking to us today. My name remains Ijoma, and once again, welcome to Code with ID. Let's be smarter. Thank you. Subscribe and share with your family and friends. See you next time.